There's a woman you should never date. But before I tell you who, listen to what most men don't. Carl Jung warned us men about this, but no one ever told you. I'm gonna do my best to explain this without sounding like a victimized little beta boy. So listen carefully. In the shadowy recesses of our psyche, there exists an archetype so potent yet perilous that even the wisest of men can falter in its presence. We call it the shadow feminine. You may not have heard of this term before, but chances are you've felt its impact if you've been betrayed by a woman, or if you've fallen prey to a manipulative one. I am gonna break down exactly what Jung meant by this and why you must be aware of it. Trust me, this is something that could have saved many men from heartbreak and trauma. And maybe if you stick with me until the end, you'll find a way out of your current situation. First off, let me explain Jung's concept of the shadow. Each one of us harbors a shadow, which Jung believed to be the darker part of our personality, those repressed emotions, fears, and traits that we keep hidden because we don't want to acknowledge them. These can be things like anger, egoism, jealousy, control issues, etc. The problem arises when we deny or try to ignore our shadow. Instead of disappearing, it emerges sideways, manifesting in unhealthy ways, such as manipulation, guilt trips, silent punishments, and the like. Now, Jung didn't say that these behaviors are exclusive to women, but he did highlight how in some women, this shadow becomes a dangerous tool. And here's why. Women hold a unique position in society. They have the power to nurture, heal, and validate, all qualities that men inherently lack and deeply crave. What makes this complex is that while men seek these things, they often come with strings attached. The catch is that the woman offering this love expects the man to shape up and change, to shed his shadow self and transform into someone better. Unfortunately, men are rarely willing to do this work. Instead, they often get lost in the fantasy of the woman's love, failing to recognize the conditions she places on it. And this creates a breeding ground for a particular type of woman, the shadow feminine. But what does she look like? And how can you tell she's part of this archetype? First, consider how she uses emotional guilt as a form of currency. With her, it's not about healthy expressions of feelings. It's about weaponizing them to gain control. If you feel manipulated by her tears or gaslight by her accusations, you're likely dealing with the shadow feminine. Another sign is when love is conditional upon your actions. If she only gives love when you comply, you're being treated like a servant, not a partner. Your role is to perform, and her love is the reward. It's a twisted game of exchange. Next, she sets no boundaries for herself, but demands you respect hers. This lack of reciprocity is a clear indication of the shadow feminine at work. She can disregard your feelings and needs, yet expects you to cater to her whims. Any deviation from her expectations, and you face punishment. The third red flag is when she mirrors your deepest needs, desires, and fantasies. At first, it might seem like a perfect match. You feel seen and understood. But this mirroring is a calculated move. She adapts to whatever you project onto her, then uses that against you. Before you know it, you're hooked, trapped in a web of your own making. And finally, the ultimate giveaway is when you feel more in love with the idea of her than who she actually is. You're enamored with the fantasy you've constructed around her, not the flawed human being standing in front of you. You're in what Jung called enmeshment, a state where you're so entangled with her that you lose sight of your individuality. Why do so many men fall for the shadow feminine? The answer lies in our own shadow. Many men have never truly faced their inner darkness. They subconsciously seek healing and wholeness through a woman. The problem is they don't know their wounds well enough to recognize her tactics. Without understanding themselves, they become puppets in her game. She pulls the strings, exploiting their vulnerabilities and leading them astray. Let me share a story, a cautionary tale of a man caught in the clutches of the shadow feminine. There was a man named John, a typical guy who thought he had found the love of his life in Sarah. Sarah was beautiful, but there was something about her that made John uncomfortable. He couldn't put his finger on it. Despite this, he decided to marry her. Soon after the wedding, John started to notice red flags. Sarah was manipulative and controlling. She constantly criticized him and made him feel like he wasn't good enough. John tried to talk to her about it, but she turned it around, making him seem like the bad guy. He began to question himself, wondering if he was the problem. Year after year, this pattern continued. John became a shell of his former self, losing his passions and dreams along the way. He started avoiding social events, fearing Sarah's judgmental gaze. Their home, once a place of solace, turned into a prison. John felt trapped, unsure of what to do. He loved Sarah, or so he thought. But as time went on, that love turned into a suffocating obsession. John sacrificed everything, his dignity, his happiness, even his friendships, all for Sarah. Yet despite his sacrifices, Sarah remained cold and distant. John was left confused and heartbroken, wondering where he went wrong. It wasn't until years later that he realized he had fallen victim to the shadow feminine. Sarah had used his love against him, twisting it into a means of control. She had taken everything from him, leaving him broken and empty. Jung believed that the only way out of this trap lay in facing your shadow directly. It's a daunting task, but essential for any man who wants to navigate the complexities of the shadow feminine. By integrating your repressed emotions and acknowledging your darker traits, you can gain control over them. This process, though challenging, leads to personal growth and self-mastery. Once you've integrated your shadow, you become more discerning in your romantic choices. You see clearly and aren't easily seduced by the allure of false promises. You won't chase after every pretty face or succumb to the fantasy of perfect love. Instead, you'll choose your partners wisely, valuing authenticity over illusion. You'll treat the feminine with respect and honor, recognizing its value while staying grounded in your own reality. In doing so, you transcend the limitations of the conscious mind and tap into the collective wisdom of humanity. You become more connected to the universe and better equipped to handle any challenges that come your way. Ultimately, this journey leads to freedom. Freedom from the shackles of societal expectations, the burden of unaddressed emotions, and the pain of past traumas. If you feel like you're currently in the grasp of the shadow feminine, don't despair. Reach out for help. Connect with other men who can relate to your struggles. And above all, believe in yourself. Remember that you hold the power to change your situation and create a better future for yourself. Now, before I leave you, let me emphasize that Jung never said all women were dangerous. He warned against the unconscious, which exists in both men and women. The question isn't, is she the one? It's, am I awake? Don't fear her shadow. Face your own. Because once you do, you'll stop chasing illusions and start living in truth. Thank you for watching.